In today's class, we're going to talk about searching our database and finding the information that we want within it. One of the most powerful aspects of the Metisys database is its search capabilities. We can have searches that range from something very simple to very complex multiple searches. And it really is a great powerful tool for finding the information that we want. Now, I've already opened up a database here using Google Chrome. And as we've mentioned before, the database is best viewed in either Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. Now, you can use other browsers. You can use Safari. You can use Firefox, and they'll work fine. But they all seem to have their own little nuances and their own little quirks about them. And I find that Google Chrome and Internet Explorer are the ones that work the best. And I happen to prefer Chrome, and that's what I have opened up here. So we have a database that's open, and we're on the main constituent management field page. And of course, most of our work, whenever we're campaigning and whenever we're out in the field, is going to be with the electioneering section of the database. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on the electioneering section here and let that come up as we start to do our class today. So again, what we're going to talk about is doing some searches, and of course, in order to get to a search, what we're going to be working with is the Find button. And you'll notice that the Find button is one of the only buttons here that has a little drop down next to it. It's got a little arrow, and the arrow indicates there's actually two buttons here. The Find, and you'll see the cursor changes to the hand with the pointy finger there on it. When I put it over the magnifying glass, and if I just go over the little arrow here, it just keeps it, it stays the arrow, but it indicates that there's a drop down there. And if I click on that drop down, it does give me two options. We're going to talk about both of them, but for our start here, what we're going to do is we're just going to start a new find. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the magnifying glass to start a find, and when I do that, what you're going to notice is that all of the fields become empty. And that's because we can search on any field within the database. And that's one of the things that makes it really powerful in the way that we can make some complex searches out of this. But we can search any field that we want. So the cursor automatically goes into the last name field. It's a little difficult to see on your screen there. You might be able to see it just flashing there. But you probably can see the little darker box around the last name field here. And that's where it just goes by default if I wanted to search for a person. But in this particular case, I want to go ahead and search in a city. So I'm going to click into the city box, the city field here. And again, notice my highlighted area surrounds the city field. And I'm going to just go ahead and start my search by typing in the city Marlborough. Now, I've typed in the whole word, but remember that when you're searching, you don't necessarily have to type in the whole word. You only need to type in enough so that Metisys realizes what it is you're trying to type. So I could type MARL, MARLB, something that is unique enough to this particular location. But I'll type the whole word, Marlborough. And let's just start our search there. Let's go ahead and click Perform Find. Now, our search function has changed from just the magnifying glass to the Perform Find with the green kind of go button there. Or I could, of course, if I didn't like it, I could just cancel it by hitting the Cancel Find button. But we don't want to do that, so we're going to hit Perform Find, and it goes out and it finds us everyone who lives, or every voter who lives in Marlborough. And if we look over at the upper left-hand section here, we can see that there are 15,208 people in our find out of 24,738. So we have 15,208 people in Marlborough. You'll notice that the little pie chart here has a light green area that indicates the found records. In fact, underneath here, let me get out of the way, it says found records. So we have found 15,000 people. Now that's certainly too many people to go and knock on today. So we want to kind of narrow that field down. Well, how are we going to do that? The first thing we can do, of course, is instead of just doing a whole new find, we can use the drop down click on the drop down and select Modify Last Find. And when I do that, you'll notice that we go back into find mode and Marlboro is still there. So we're just modifying that last one. We're starting where we left off. So in this case, let's say that I don't want to just go to all of Marlboro. I'm going to say I want to take a look at Ward 3, Precinct 1. And by putting things on the same page like I am, we're really creating what would be known as an AND statement. And what I mean by that is, when we click Perform Find, we are going to be saying, I want to find everybody in Marlboro and Ward 3 and Precinct 1. So Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, how many people is that going to give us? We'll click Perform Find, and we've now narrowed it down to 1,216 people. Notice our light green pie wedge there got a lot smaller. So we're now down to 1,216 people. Still a little too much for us. We can still narrow that down. So I'm going to go back to my drop down on my Find menu, my Find button. Click Modify Last Find again. It keeps Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1. And now I want to look at only those voters who I'm pretty sure are going to come out and vote. So we're going to start with the voter propensity. Now remember that in the general election here, not being a presidential, we're not going to have the greatest turnout like we see in a presidential. It's going to be a lower turnout of more dedicated voters. Those are, of course, our A and B voters. So we want to find the A and B voters. And to do that, I'm going to put in my voter ranking propensity field here, A ... B. Now you may say, well, what's that ... mean? What's this all about? And what this means is the ... it gives us a range. And if you really want to know, there's a lot of different things that you can put in here. They're called operators. And we have a convenient list up here on one of the menu bars. And if we click on the operators drop down, we can see all the different options that are available to us. And what we did was we chose the range. ... means range. So we're looking at A through B voters. Now we could have used something else. We could have just said, how about instead of that, we want maybe less than. Let's try that. Instead of A ... B, we want less than C, which of course would be A and B. So we could do that. So now we're going to narrow the search further. We're Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, who are less than C, or A and B voters. Let's see what that gives us for results. We're now down to 635 people. So that's a little bit better. We can make a walk list out of that. We can start to hit those doors if we want to. But let's just take this one step further and say that I don't necessarily want to knock on those who are the hardcore Democrats. I really want to, I need to knock on those who are to the right, who are conservative, Republicans, and those who lean to the right. So I'm going to change my search one last time here. I'm going to use my drop down. I'm going to create Modify Last Find. Everything still says. And now in the voter ranking field for the number, I am going to put, I want to search on anybody who is, say, a 1 through a 3. Okay? I don't want to search on 5s because the 5s are the people who are the hardcore Democrats, so they're probably not going to, I don't want to waste too much time on them. Maybe I want to take a look at 4, see if I can persuade some of them. We can make that decision. But for this example, I'm going to say, show me everybody who is less than, the less than side again, less than a 4. So now our search says Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, less than C, so A and B voters, and less than 4, who are 1, 2, and 3. So A and B, 1, 2, and 3 voters in Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1. And now we click Perform Find, and now we're down to 381 people. It's much more manageable. This is an acceptable list. Let's go ahead and create a walk list out of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click very simply. If I want to create that walk list, I can click on Create Walk List. And it's going to bring me to the walk list page, and it brings everybody up here. So I can see all of my voters' rankings. Notice that there's nobody who is greater than a 3 or greater than a B. They're sorted by their street address. The streets are in alphabetical order, so we have Ames Street, and then by the number, so we start with 2 Ames, etc., etc. If there's an apartment, they're here. Their age, their party, and their ward and precinct. They were all Ward 3, Precinct 1. We also will have any notes that may appear in this area. So this is good. I want to go and knock on these doors, but this screen here doesn't especially do me a lot of good. I need to get this into my hands, maybe print it out so that somebody can go and take this, or I can go take this, or I send it to a volunteer. And I'm going to do that by clicking on the CSV button. Now you'll notice that there are 2 other buttons, the PDF and the Excel. In the web access, these buttons won't work for you. They've been disabled. But the CSV button will, and the CSV button will do pretty much just give you a file that you can open up in Excel. So it will work pretty much the same way. And when you click on that button, you're going to get a pop-up that says Export Records to File. Now, something of note here is that you do have to allow pop-ups in your browser for the Metisys database. So if we run into an error, it may tell us, hey, you're blocking pop-ups. You can then go ahead and unblock them. Unfortunately, the first time you do it, you may have to go through the process again. But once we get to this process and we've clicked the CSV button, we're going to click, it's going to bring up the Export Records to File pop-up. And it's going to ask me to save this file as something. So I'm just going to save this file as Marlboro, and we'll call it 3-1. Marlboro Ward 3, Precinct 1. That one looks good for me. And then it's going to ask me the type of file that I want. It gives you a few different options. The easiest one for our purposes is going to be the comma-separated text. That is one that can be easily opened up in Excel. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It's going to chug along, and it's going to open up the next dialog box, which says which fields do you want to export. Now, you can choose different fields, but we've already done the main fields for you. They're all right here. You don't have to worry about doing this or changing or adding or deleting fields. Everything's here for you. All you need to do is click the Export button, and it's going to go export them. Now, in Google Chrome here, what's happening is it gives me another page, and it actually downloads it to my download folder. In fact, you'll see that it's been saved there, and if I click on the drop down, I can say show in folder, and it is in my downloads section. And let's see if we go all the way up to the top. There it is, Marlboro 3. And then I can open up with Excel. In fact, if I open it up, let's take a quick look at it in Excel. It will be all the fields that were exported. It will have it in a nice, neat order, and we can simply print off this field, this sheet for our walkers. So we can see that we have. Let me just expand these fields out. Give us a little room here, and we can see that we have the voter ID, the name, street number, street address, apartment, etc., etc. And we can see all this information. Okay. Now, one of the things that we do have here is we do export out the voter ID number, and that's going to come in handy later, so you don't want to get rid of that, especially if you're copying the information to an Excel spreadsheet. So you want to make sure that you keep that information there. Okay? But that's how we can export it to an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and just close this. We don't want to save it. And I'll close out my downloads. And brings me back to my walk list page. I'll click on the back button. And what we've done is we've just created a very simple find in order to create a walk list of people that we want to go see. Now, the next thing that we want to do in this lesson is take this one step further and show you a little bit more advanced finding capabilities. All we've done so far, I'm going to just go ahead and click on the drop down and click on Modify Last Find. We've created a find that really has one basic set of parameters. As I said, it was kind of an AND statement. It said Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, less than C and less than 4. That's kind of that one search, and it works very well. As you see, we put together a walk list very easily. But how about if we want some additional criteria? What if we wanted more than Ward 3 in Precinct 1, or a different voter ranking as well? This is where we get a little bit more complex. You'll notice that when we clicked on Find or modify that last find, one of the things we haven't talked about was a button that became active here in the middle of the screen, which was New Request. And the other thing is our find request, our menu over on the left-hand side here, changed. And now we just have one. This refers to the number of search requests that you have. And remember that the first request, the first search we've done is Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, those who are less than a C and less than a 4. But in this instance, what we want to do is we want to add in some additional people, because I don't necessarily want to discard the C's, but I don't want to go to C voters who are going to be 3s and 4s, because we just don't, we can't spend the time with them. So we would like to add in C voters who are 1s and 2s, who are definitely going to vote for us if we can just get them out to vote. That's going to be a get out the vote effort on election day, so we're not going to worry about that right now, but we would like to knock on their door. And the way we do that is by creating a new request. Now, when I create a new request, I'm going to click on the New Request button. You will notice a couple of things. It says you're in find mode and appear to be entering a new record data rather than a find request criteria. Are you sure you want to create a new find request? Yes, I do. What's going to happen is the number of requests is going to go from 1 to 2. And we're going to show you the first one there in just a second. Notice we do have a back arrow key, and we can go and look at both finds. The second thing that happened is it starts us with all new criteria. Notice there are no fields that are filled in. Now they do exist. If I click on the back arrow key here, I can go to the previous find request, and when I do that, it brings me to request number 1, which is Marlboro, Ward 3, Precinct 1, etc., etc. My second request has yet to be defined. And so in this case, I need to type in Marlboro, and we still want Ward 3, and we still want Precinct 1, but in this case we want the C voters. Let me put a capital C, even though you don't have to put cap. I'm going to put the C voters who are less than 3. So I want to include in my find those voters who are presidential voters, but they're going to be 1s and 2s, because I think if I can just drag them out to vote, they will vote for me. So we're trying to expand that voter base. And now when I click Perform Find, my total find is now 400 people. It was 300 and something before. Now it's 400 people. That's because we've included, in fact, this particular first person that shows up is a C2 voter. So this particular woman is somebody who doesn't necessarily come out and vote in those general elections. She votes in presidential elections. In fact, if we click on the voter data tab, we'll probably see that she is in fact pretty much just a presidential election voter, although she voted in Scott Brown's election, and she did pull a Republican primary ballot a long time ago. More recently, we can really just count on her for voting in presidentials. But again, she's most likely to come and vote for us if we can just get her out there. So that's going to be our effort, and we wanted to include her in the list. So now we've expanded that list, and it has those 2 requests. Again, I can create the walk list and then export it into a CSV file, and there you have it. So it's a very good way, it's a very powerful tool to do those searches. We're going to talk about some other searches in some subsequent classes, but I hope this gets you started, and I hope that you have happy hunting out there.